Hello, I'm Sophie. I'm the Client Onboarding and Training Manager at Lawyer Checker. So today I'm just going to go through the changes for the Thirdfort ID checker that have come in regard to the Safe Harbour standard. So this is just a really quick overview of the changes to the order platform, a little bit about the client journey, and then going over essentially what the report looks like and how that will be received. So very similar to what the current process is in terms of entering in the client's name, the mobile number in the international format, so +44 for the UK, the transaction name, which will be seen by the client on the app. So that's just going to be whether it's purchase of 5 Bell Road, sale of 5 Bell Road, or Mr. Smith probate. That's just whatever is relevant for the client to see. You've then got information about the transaction reference. That one's going to be really important for invoicing purposes if you are using any source of funds through this process. That's purely because source of funds is charged per transaction, whereas ID remains an individual cost. So for source of funds, if you have got 3 purchases, they all need to have the exact same transaction reference, and that means you're only going to be charged that £9.95 plus VAT for all 3 purchases. It's the same for giftors. If you've got 2 giftors attached to that particular transaction, then the 2 giftors need to have the same transaction reference to make sure that those again are charged at £9.95 plus VAT, separate price from the purchasers, but essentially it's then meaning you're not going to be charged more than that. Source of funds, it's essentially if you have purchaser and giftor, is going to be capped at £19.90 plus VAT. That essentially means that it's per transaction cost, and if it's all purchases and there's no giftors, it's £9.95 plus VAT, and that's capped no matter how many purchases you have. And obviously you can click purchases and have source of funds for all of those people. That's absolutely fine, as long as they have the same transaction reference. So a little bit in terms of the information we've got here for the standard ID check. Essentially, we've got what the different ID checks provide at the top here. You can got a link here. We've got the standard ID check and essentially how Safe Harbour requirements are met by Thirdfort in there as well. And we've got what each task essentially means. So proof of ownership is only going to be available with the standard ID check. And that is because as part of the requirement number 4, for HM Land Registry, you need to have the proof of ownership essentially of the property. And because of that particular task needing to be required on there, we've got that as a separate task that's only available. If it's a sale, obviously you'll want the proof of ownership. If it's a purchase, you probably don't need anything in relation to that. If you wanted it, you could have it, but otherwise you just click no. It's included in the price regardless, but obviously you'd need that for a sale. You'd need the proof of ownership included. And then you've got proof of address, which again is included in the price, and I'd recommend just having, because although we do Experian checks with the ID, it's always worth having that additional document with their address on, and it's a visual proof of address document, so utility bill, bank statements, etc. Once you've clicked that, you're just going to click submit. So you've got whatever you need, whether it's just an ID, for sale, whether it's ID and source of funds, you can click on any of those. The difference being for source of funds questionnaire is a giftor or purchaser. That's the choice between those two. If you only need ID, then it is literally whether it's a sale or purchase as to whether you need that proof of ownership, but you want to have that standard ID check ticked for as many transactions as you can, mainly because it gives you that safety net from HM Land Registry, which is essentially what they've said is that if you meet our 4 requirements set out, then you are safe from recourse should fraud occur, which is essentially what the safety net you want to reach. When you're ready, you just click submit and the client will receive a text as they normally do. They'll download the app and just go through those processes there. So Safe Harbour requirements, we've got them listed here, and this is available just here from the home page for you to view. Essentially what the requirements are. You've also got what information you can use for proof of address here, and then what it means for conveyances. So requirements 1, 2, 3 and 4 and how those are met. essentially, requirements 1, 2, and 3 are met by Thirdfort as long as they've been able to use a passport and been able to use a smartphone for the near-field communication, which is essentially almost like a contactless payment using your phone. So as long as they've been able to do that, you've actually passed the first 3 requirements. Requirement 4 is providing the proof of ownership document, and that is slightly different because you yourself, as the person receiving this document, need to review that yourself to make sure that that is something that is an accepted form and that it's within date. So although the app does tell them what information they need to provide and that it has to be within a certain time frame, if the client doesn't upload that, that needs to be checked, and they can then upload an additional document that is then compliant with the requirement number 4. So that's just a really important note to make sure that that is being reviewed, because there's currently no real technology that can actually process any kind of proof of address to make sure it is 1, legitimate, or 2 within that time and date frame. So once you've done that, you're just then going to get the report back over to you. So the report changes essentially slightly different. And this is, instead of receiving via an email with a link, you're going to receive the report to yourselves directly. And that comes as an encrypted PDF that you're able to then view and upload to your case management. If you do need to refer back to anything, you just click on Thirdfort, you click into Lawyer Checker, you click on Thirdfort at the top in the blue letters, and then you're able to look at your search history and re-download reports. Absolutely fine to do. All the reports will still be there for you. It's just an easy way of you receiving them. Once you've received this report, the main changes here is just the fact that it does say the information, whether it is a standard ID check and it's complete, which means it's compliant with HM Land Registry Safe Harbour. If it looks slightly different, it will be back to the original ID check. The original ID check, if you've seen that prior to this, you'll be able to tell the difference because one has the standard ID check complete on there and one doesn't. It's also a little bit different in terms of the information. So you can see here that the document report is much shorter than the original. That is essentially because the near field communication, it's government grade security, and it's been able to read and check that information. It doesn't then have to do all these different other checks, although it's still running facial similarity, address match, and PEPs and sanctions. For the document itself, it's either legitimate from biometric chip or it's not. So that's how that's checked. You've then got the image that's been taken from the liveliness test, and you've also got then the passport as well. And that's the image that's been extracted from the passport when it's run those checks. This has been blacked out purely because this is an example report. We'll be able to provide, when you get that information from people, it will not have anything blacked out. It will be a normal page for you. And again, that's just for you to review and for your records. Personal information here is essentially just saying that, one, we've been able to check the information, we've been able to run and validate the particular document, that passport. We've been able to validate that it is the same person, but obviously we want to check the information is consistent. And again, that's repeating that here just to say that information that's been entered by the client, there's 0 days between the date of birth read from the chip and the one entered by the client. So no typographical errors essentially. Then got proof of ownership, so the client's uploaded a driver's license for this, and obviously again won't be blacked out. And then you've got the proof of address document, and that's going to have the name, the date of birth, the name and the address on there as well for you. So it's got all that information there for you to review for that particular proof of address document as well. So that's if you've clicked standard ID, proof of ownership, and proof of address, that you'll receive those particular documents. The format for the source of funds hasn't actually changed, so it'll look exactly like it does at the moment. So that's not a particular change on that system. It's the main thing is the ID that's going through. If you do have any questions, I appreciate that I've covered quite a bit in this few minutes here. So if you do have any questions, you can contact myself. That's absolutely fine. More than happy to go through these changes. We've also got a getting started guide on this particular section down here. And we've also got our contact information for support as well. So quite helpfully, you can just contact a few different means if you need that support. That's absolutely fine. And we're here to provide that. Thank you very much for your time.